Jon Jones may be fighting for a juicy message headliner. Could Jon Jones be the next UFC superstar to headline at Madison Square Garden? That might be a tempting option if Jones recaptures the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship Saturday night at UFC 214 by beating reigning champ Daniel Cormier. The UFC is expected to expand its fall schedule, which will include a return to the world's most famous arena. UFC President Dana White confirmed when the Floyd Mayweather-Conor McGregor World Tour stopped at Barclays Center earlier this month that the UFC would be returning to the Garden before the end of the year. UFC 215 is set for September 9 in Edmonton, Alberta. New York should follow shortly after. Jones would be a natural fit for the Garden, with roots in Ithaca and Rochester, and why he now trains in Albuquerque, New Mexico. His return to the top of the UFC popularity chart is initially dependent on his performance against Cormier, the reigning light heavyweight champion who lost to then-champion Jones in January 2015. Their rematch took longer than expected. Jones was stripped of his belt in 2015 after being involved in a hit-and-run incident in Albuquerque. He previously was charged with DUI and tested positive for cocaine. He is now coming off a one-year suspension after testing positive for a substance banned by USADA. Combat fans are forgiving. Despite his troubles, Jones will do big business if he stays clean and continues to be as dominant in the octagon as he once was. He and White are on frosty terms after Jones took a sex enhancement pill that triggered an anti-doping violation and caused the cancellation of his rematch with Cormier at UFC 200 last July. White felt betrayed. Jones felt abandoned. "We'll work all that out," White said this week. Jones has to stay busy. The UFC needs a pay-per-view attraction besides McGregor. Plus, a busy schedule will keep Jones focused and allow him to make up the money he lost while sitting out most of the last 2 years. Meanwhile, White and the UFC will have to work hard to top its UFC 205 lineup last November at the Garden. White described it as the biggest fight card in the company's history. McGregor defeated Eddie Alvarez in the main event for the UFC Lightweight Championship to become the first UFC fighter to hold titles in different weight divisions. Tyron Woodley successfully defended his welterweight title against Stephen Thompson, and Joanna Jędrzejczyk kept her women's strawweight belt with a triumph over Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Former UFC women's bantamweight champion Miesha Tate lost and announced her retirement in the octagon, and Toms River, New Jersey, favorite Frankie Edgar defeated Jeremy Stephens to remain a title contender. A crowd of 20,427 filled the Garden that night, earning a record gate of $17.7 million. Edgar figures to be on the next Garden card, perhaps fighting for the featherweight title. Long Island middleweight Chris Weidman also could return after a recent win at Nike Live at Nassau Coliseum. McGregor, the pay-per-view cash cow, figures to be unavailable after making $50 million $100 million boxing Mayweather. You might not see the Irishman back in the octagon until next year. White also has said the UFC would return to Barclays Center ASAP and promised to put together a more memorable card than the one held in Brooklyn last February. "I owe Brooklyn one. That's for sure," White said. "Our last showing wasn't the best. I owe Brooklyn a fight." UFC 208 at Barclays Center saw unknown Germaine de Randamie defeat Holly Holm for the first women's 145-pound featherweight championship. MMA legend Anderson Silva earned a unanimous decision over a tentative Derek Brunson, and Ronaldo Souza, Glover Teixeira and Dustin Poirier also won. The attendance was 15,628 for a gate of $2,275,105. Just 200,000 bought the pay-per-view bout as compared to 1.3 million for UFC 205. The UFC has been busy in New York since the state legalized MMA in April 2016. The company has held events at the Garden, Barclays Center and in Albany, Buffalo and on Long Island. Thanks for watching. Don't forget subscribe my channel to watch more video.